Welcome back. In the introduction, we mentioned there would be a simulation, and here it is. So she's going to teach me how to refactor. I'm the coder, she is the non-coding facilitator, and I'm really curious what she can teach me about coding.
And as the non-coding facilitator, we've broken this up into 8 segments, each segment ending in a success check, which helps us make sure that we're actually being effective in teaching these coders how to refactor. So hopefully you have been able to check out the resources that were available in our first introductory section. However, if you haven't been, you can always now go to the insightloop.digdeeproots.com and download the facilitator's guide directly from there. Just so that you know what that looks like, we can go directly to that website, and this is what you'll see. As you scroll down, you'll see workshop materials here in the center, and then you'll see the Non-Coders Facilitator's Guide for the Insight Loop Workshop. This is what you want. When you open it, you're going to see the first few sections here are just to help you set up the mob for success. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into the mob cycle. So I'm going to go directly there. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the first segment. So this has phase 1, where we're trying to simply identify code and pull it out. So we know, based on the facilitator's notes as a non-coder, that the developers are going to naturally want to find exactly the right code and pull it out exactly the right way. And we're not going to let them do that. So go ahead and follow along the instructions that you're going to see down here. And we're going to do the very first segment here, or the first part of the first segment, where one of these things is not like the other. So Arlo, did you bring some painful code or gnarly code that you wouldn't normally want to work in?
Oh yeah, this one's awful. So it's a relatively simple, it's only a 150 line method, but it starts here with this big comment that I don't understand. I'm sure it made sense to the original author, and then it follows with a bunch of code that has no comments and poor names, and I don't understand. But it does stuff. And it does stuff that's really important inside the compiler. I don't know exactly what. So it seems like a perfect candidate. You told me something awful that I didn't understand, and here it is.
Great. So the first thing I want to ask you to do is zoom it out so we can see kind of the big picture.
Zoom out. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and zoom out. Tiny. I can I can't really read that.
Okay, and that's the whole point. We tend to get into a rabbit hole trying to read every detail. What we're going to look for here are shapes. So what I would like you to do right now is go ahead and see what parts look interesting to you from a shape perspective.
Shape. Okay. Well, what looks interesting to me? Well, let's see. This is interesting to me because it looks like it's some really long line, so it must be complicated. That must be the end of the method. This looks interesting to me because it's a bump in, that's a bump in. Like, for that matter, this whole thing here looks really interesting because that just keeps going and going.
Well,
and, yeah.
What I'm hearing here is that you are interested in the deep indents.
Yes, yeah. Deep indents all look interesting.
Okay. And FYI to other facilitators is common. We will find most programmers will instantly go for the deep indents. So now go ahead and pick one of those indents and zoom back out so that we can extract it.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so I've zoomed in. All right, let's go ahead and find that. Let's see. There was this interesting stuff with the for loop, and then there was this big, long, run-on, deeply indented thing, which I just collapsed. I think that's it. I'm going to do that chunk.
Okay, great. So now I know what I'm going to ask you right now is not safe. We're just getting used to basically finding things that aren't quite like the others, i.e. that big indent. So we will practice safety in the next cycle. Don't worry about that. But for now, go ahead and extract just that section.
Okay. I'll just extract it. I have no idea what it is.
Great. That makes it perfect then to go ahead and just name it a nonsense name like foo, for example.
Okay, well, since the tool said new method and that's total nonsense, I'll use new method.
Okay, new method works just fine. All right, so we've identified something that isn't like the other in this gigantic piece of code, and we've extracted one of those pieces into something much smaller. But new method is not very descriptive. So I would like you to look through that and identify at least one thing that it does.
Okay. All right. Well, from looking at the call site, I have no idea what it does. All right, that's useless. Looking down here, it does... I'm not really sure what each of these three things do, but it does something differently depending on the number of not best candidates. Whatever the hell a not best candidate is.
All right. So you know it does something with not best candidates?
Yeah, something based on the number of not best candidates.
Number of best. Okay. So what I would like you to do is, now that you've extracted it into something nonsense, we're going to name it better in this step.
Okay.
And this is where we're starting to shift into the names that don't suck part. We want to be very honest. So we can very honestly say probably underscore.
Okay, so I want to rename this.
Yep.
Okay, probably underscore.
And then whatever you think that you identified.
Do something depending on number of not best candidates. Which, by the way, most coders will complain at this point because the name is too long and everyone's got a habit in the field of keep your name short. Let them know this is temporary. It's okay to have a crappy, really long name. As they learn more about it, they'll be able to make it shorter, and that will alleviate their concerns, and then they'll carry on. You do want them to just make the ugly ass long name right now.
And then end it with and stuff.
And stuff. Okay, I see what you mean. It probably does this random thing and probably some other stuff. Okay,
right.
That's honest.
And as you mentioned, Arlo, they will be concerned about a horrible name like that. For facilitators, you can be alleviated with the fact that you can have a technical expert on your side. In this case, Arlo has completed several videos that we know developers would have an immediate objection to. So at this point, as a non-coding facilitator, I would simply show them this video as they are complaining about this long name, and I can do the best I can do to explain it. This video will explain it much more technically. So I would just be clicking on that and say, okay, go ahead and watch that. All right, so hand waving that time passing of the video. Your success check at this point is that you have a second method from that big chunk of code, and it's named according to the pattern provided. Remember, that pattern is probably whatever that thing is and stuff. So congratulations, we've gotten the mob through the first success check. And up to now, it's been okay to do because they're just playing around within the code and they feel like they haven't made any major commitment. Our next particular success check, though, will be entering that territory. So there's going to be a little more facilitation required. Stay tuned.